An ordinance in the city of Baltimore said that any property that a tenant left behind after an eviction was abandoned. And now the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals has found that that ordinance is unconstitutional. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting story for you today, and it's coming out of the city of Baltimore, Maryland. It has to do with an ordinance that the city had that said that any property that a tenant left behind after an eviction was abandoned. Now, this is different than what a lot of states and a lot of municipalities have in place that says that if a tenant leaves property behind, then a landlord has to store it. I actually dealt with this when I was a landlord in Arizona, where basically I had to store the tenant's property that they abandoned for a certain period of time. And if they did not come and collect it, then finally I could dispose of it. Okay. Now, in other places, they obviously allow landlords to not take the property, but leave it out on the curb so that the tenants have an opportunity to come by, pick up their stuff, and then go away. But a lot of tenants were having a big issue with this because their property was getting stolen. Okay, a lot of cities were having problems with this because there were just huge piles of junk all over, leaving a blight, making a whole area look like garbage. And so a lot of cities like Baltimore said, hey, we don't want this to happen. We want the landlord or the property owner to get rid of this crap immediately. And rather than putting the burden on the landlord to store it, they just said, hey, you could just immediately throw it away, which I'm in agreement with, right? Even though I've dealt with the situation where I've had to store it before, I just follow whatever laws that I'm operating in under say, okay? But I have a question for you. Before I get into the article, I want you to go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So what do you think would be the best course of action in this sort of situation? So you've had an eviction and the tenant left a whole bunch of stuff in the property, okay? What do you think is best for you as a landlord? Do you think that we should have to store the property? Okay. Do you think that we should be able to just immediately throw it all away? Okay. What do you think would be the best option? And if we do store it, my belief is that the tenant shouldn't be able to get any of the property out of storage unless they pay the storage fee. Okay, that's my personal belief. And any storage fees that are required should be billed back to the tenant. Okay, this should never be put an additional burden, additional cost on the landlord. This is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, but that is exactly what happens in the most jurisdictions. So anyway, let me get into this whole story about what's going on up in Baltimore, because it's an interesting story. And I know we've all of us who have had evictions have dealt with this issue before. So this article is coming from the Baltimore Sun, and it says, Baltimore's abandoned property ordinance violates the rights of evicted tenants, Fourth Circuit rules. All right, let's see what it says. A Baltimore ordinance that deems any property left behind after an eviction as abandoned violates the constitutional rights of tenants, a federal appeals court ruled Monday. The Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals found that the city violated the due process rights of two tenants who lost personal belongings when they were evicted from their Baltimore home in 2019. The tenants, Marshall and Tiffany Todman, never got back items, including family photos and the cremated remains of a loved one, according to court documents. In my mind, this is their fault, okay? There was no mistake of when they were going to be removed from this unit, okay? We are required by law in every state, in every municipality across the country, you're required to put postings and notices, etc. Just because these people didn't want to remove the stuff on their own and force the landlord's hand. Because you really think, I have a question. Do you really believe that the landlord wanted to go in there and have to remove all your junk? Of course not, okay? They would have much preferred you do it on your own. But rather than taking personal responsibility and saying, hey, okay, I didn't pay the rent, I need to get out of here and take all my stuff with me, you were like, no, they're not gonna remove me. Like, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Okay. Court order says you're being evicted. All the notices and postings, and you, even in the most landlord-friendly states, right? They will give you an opportunity to move your stuff up out of there after you get an eviction order. But you didn't do it. You didn't do it. And now your stuff, the cremated remains of relatives, family photos, etc., all got thrown in the trash. Now, I'm not saying that that's cool, because I wouldn't want my personal stuff thrown in the trash either. But if you gave me a notice saying, hey, if you don't get your stuff up out of here, we're going to throw it away, well, I would have got my stuff up out of there. Okay? It's very irresponsible of you not to have done that. So anyway, let me continue. The appeal centers on a 2007 city ordinance that prohibited landlords from putting evicted tenants' things on the sidewalk to prevent blight and piles of abandoned belongings in the streets. The law also gave landlords the immediate right to take possession of any belongings left in a residence. Under the law, tenants have no way to reclaim their property, and landlords are not required to store the property for any period of time before taking possession. And I understand the logic behind the law, okay? And I agree with it. If you left your stuff in there, we gave you all the proper notices, and you didn't remove it, well, there's only one way that we can get it up out of there, and that's if you allow the landlord to take possession of it and then throw it away if they need to, okay? I truly doubt many landlords are going through your junk and being like, oh, I'm going to sell it, or I'm going to keep it for myself. No, you don't want your stuff, okay? They just want their unit back. And by you leaving your stuff in there, they can't get that unit back. So the only solution where, according to this Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, the only solution I could think of would be to change the law where now landlords have to store this property for some period of time before they're able to dispose of it, right? But like I said, now the burden is on the landlord and not on the tenant. So in my mind, it should be like, for example, similar to how if a car gets towed. If a car gets towed, then if you want to get it, you have to pay the tow truck driver to get your car back, right? Or from the tow lot, okay? But if your property is stored and you want to get that property back, now you got to pay the storage facility so that you can get your property back, because storing property isn't free, okay? Putting that burden on the landlord is dumb. And the way I see it is, simply put, like that should be the thing. The caveat to all of this should be that if you're evicted and they have to put property in storage, then you, as the tenant, the only way you can retrieve any of that property is by you paying the storage costs. And it should never, ever fall on the back of the landlord. But here's the problem with that. A lot of tenants aren't going to pay, and so these storage facilities, etc., they are going to take a huge loss. They're going to take a huge loss if they're being forced to store this crap, right? So the only way they can get their money back is by, of course, charging the landlord, because the landlord's the only one with money. If the tenant couldn't pay rent, do you really think they're going to be able to pay a storage facility for any reason whatsoever? No. And the storage facility is going to end up with a whole bunch of junk that they can't sell, they can't do anything with. So yeah, I mean, this is a lose. The only one who wins in a situation where you can't immediately throw this crap away is the tenant, because otherwise nobody's gonna win. Somebody has to lose, and most of the time they're trying to dump it on us as the property owners, as though this is somehow our responsibility. A 3-judge panel of the Fourth Circuit affirmed a lower court ruling that found the ordinance violated tenants' rights because they did not receive adequate warning that they would lose their belongings. Baltimore's law department declined to comment on the decision in a statement. As this matter is ongoing, we will reserve all statements for the appropriate judicial forum. So it seems like if that's the case, right, where they said that they did not receive adequate warning that they would lose their belongings, the solution then would be to just give them adequate warning as part of the ordinance. Okay? Let them know that when you're evicted, you're going to lose all your stuff if you don't remove it. Okay? Make sure that you give them enough adequate warning. We don't have to change the law at all. That's what it seems like would be the easiest solution to me, and one that benefits, the landlords, one where the tenants get their adequate warning, one where the city doesn't have to worry about a bunch of junk piled up, one where there's no worries of storage or any of that crap, right? So yeah, hopefully they're able to work it out and figure out how to change the law but keep it the way it is, and don't put all this burden onto the backs of landlords.